And now, my friends, we're back in business with a showdown between the Warriors of Chaos, who shall be led by Archaon the Ever-Chosen. And today, guys, we face off against the dreaded HALBERDS, who shall be leading the forces of Bretonnia, and it looks like it is going to be the king. Hail to the king, baby! King Lewin is back in business. So Chaos versus Bretonnia, certainly a matchup that's evolved quite a bit over the years. Historically, back in the early days of things, basically the Warriors of Chaos used to just get halberd boxes, and then they'd stack Dragon Ogre Shaggots on those boxes and just kind of sit there and wait for the Bretonnians with their halberds and big monsters. But things have changed quite a bit. You can't really get away with that same style of play as much as you used to. Obviously, Bretonnia has really shifted into using a ton of Peasant Bowmen, and Peasant Bowmen, even though Shaggots do have 70 armor and also scaly skin, you know, sustained fire coming from Peasant Bowmen is going to absolutely wreck the big monsters. And on top of that, Bretonnia's gotten buffs to Questing Knights and, you know, different things across the board. So that style of play, it can work, but against a build like HALBERDS brought, for example, let's go ahead and take a look here. 2, 3, 4, 5 Peasant Archers. Yeah, that would be a lot of firepower. And halberds, though they're very good at holding against cav charges, they're not exceptional at killing infantry. So that style of play really just isn't as efficient as it used to be. Now, as far as my build goes, it has some similar principles. Chaos Warrior Halberds, of course, did recently get buffed in the most recent patch, and these bad boys can hold their own. They do actually trade pretty much dead even with Foot Squires, which isn't really cost effective. Foot Squires do cost a little bit less than Chaos Warriors, but again, against heavy cavalry, these guys can hold their own. They have 42 melee defense, bonus versus large, great armor piercing, so a great tool against like Questing Knights, Knights of the Realm, Grail Knights, etc., etc. So in order to deal with the Foot Squires, I brought the Soul of Damnation here in the back. This is the Arawar Hell Cannon here, and this bad boy really packs some serious thump, that's for sure. But why it's really good compared to the regular Hell Cannon. And honestly, you know, after talking about this with HALBERDS, we both agreed that bringing the Soul of Damnation is pretty much almost always better in these like long grindy style matchups because it has 40 ammunition, whereas the standard Hell Cannon I think has like 20 or a substantially lower amount. So that extra ammo really makes a huge difference. But 2 Marauders in the front just to hold their own, 4 Chaos Halberds, 2 Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes to basically pick on heavy cavalry. And if I don't have these, for example, Lewin can sit on top of me and just fly over my army, and there's nothing to really keep him away. So I like to have a couple Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. Now, trying something a little bit different here. I don't normally go with this combo here, but we do have the double Exalted Hero. So this is kind of a school of thought to potentially take out characters like the Fey Enchantress, and as well as the Paladins that often accompany her. So it's going to be double Exalted Hero. Archaon's here with Burning Head, Flaming Sword, and Cascading Fire Cloak, as well as the Slayer of Kings. Slayer of Kings pretty good. Him and Lewin often do end up having to duel in this matchup, so having the Slayer of Kings I think is very, very important. And 1 Chaos Chariot, just to be a little bit of a distraction card effects. And man, oh man, that Hell Cannon doing some serious work, blasting into these Foot Squires, a couple of them being eviscerated and sent to the warp. Talk about Value City right there. But the front line for Bretonnia is going to be a combination of peasant mobs and Foot Squires. And Foot Squires, of course, recently were buffed as well. So Foot Squires making a little bit of a comeback in the meta. We, of course, saw Fistek use the Foot Squires in the Ever-Chosen Grand Finals to pretty good success against the Dawi. And here HALBERDS is with the mighty Foot Squires as well. So I think in total he's got 3 or 4 of those. Looks like 3. It's going to be, I believe, quad Questing Knight. And really, Questing Knights are the most cost-effective knight in this matchup. There's not really any justification for bringing Grail Knights, in my opinion, or Knights of the Realm. Questing Knights can fight Chaos Knights, they can fight Chaos Infantry, they do pretty well against Chaos Monsters with their good generalist stats. I really do think that Questing Knights are the breadwinners here. That's pretty much it. I think he's got a Manticore Summoner and some Peasant Archers, and that's going to be the full Monty, man. So let's get this show started and have some fun. Hell Cannon going downtown, methodically here, switching between targets, trying to blast the different Foot Squires. You know, because obviously there's less Foot Squires here, so the probability of really, you know, hitting them is less likely. So I like to switch targets every shot and go after the more densely packed, healthy units here and there. But, you know, my micro slips, and oftentimes I forget to switch targets here. So the Foot Squire is going to be taking a second blast, and that is really good. That's about 300 gold gone here. So the Hell Cannon is more or less on its way to paying for itself, which I'm quite happy about. Lewin, in the meantime, chasing down my poor Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, and you can see the mighty King of Bretonnia is on the hunt. But the Marauder Horseman should be able to kite him back, and now we pretty much just have to hold. So a Summoned Manticore has been brought forth here by Bretonnia, the damsel cackling into the wind and summoning the mighty beast. But I do have Chaos Warriors with halberds in the trees. They should be able to defend it. And just to make sure that the Hell Cannon itself doesn't die, I drop the crew, tell the Soul of Damnation to pull back, and then the Manticore is basically just going to be getting rampaged into halberds here, and it should be a-okay. Now, HALBERDS with a pretty good play here, knowing you don't have shields, just going to be using 5 Peasant Bowmen, and this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, they have bad AP. It's very common, you know, criticism of such units, but volume of fire is volume of fire, man, and these Chaos Warrior Halberds are definitely taking a bit of a beating. Now, Lewin goes in for a bit of a freebie, but we do, of course, have the Exalted Hero and Archaon and the Goon Squad here doing some work, and a big overcasted Burning Head coming right down the pipe, going to be going through those Foot Squires, and also hitting the Peasant Bowmen in the process, and Might be able to tickle the pickle of some guys back here. It doesn't look like it, so yeah. For the most part, I think it was good. We hit the foot squires, we hit a couple peasant archers here, and also broke off that mob, which, you know, is a little bit of a consolation prize. So far, it's a pretty hog-wild battle. The peasant archers are proving to be the MVPs here for Bretonnia. My marauders in the front are breaking down, but the Hell Cannon should be back online here in a moment. The crew was able to get back on the Soul of Damnation. Halberds took a little bit of damage from the Manticore, losing 3 models in total, but, you know, that's what they're good at, right? That's their role. Those bad boys took a beating for the Chaos Gods. Hell Cannon now going to be switching targets, going after, I believe, the archers. I think at this point I was really starting to feel the heat. I was like, oh man, Hadri's is doing so much damage to my halberds here with those archers. It's not like the cavalry are really doing a lot. It's the freaking archers, man. So you got those guys teeing off into my unshielded Chaos Warriors here. Another Hell Cannon shot coming in. These poor peasants. Talk about a pretty crappy thing, man. Peasants have it so bad. Like, oh, let's get eviscerated by some Warfire today or torn apart by some Beastmen. I mean, it's just always so unpleasant, their demise. Burning Head going to be coming right down the pipe. Thankfully, the peasants were kind of lined up for me here, and the Burning Head going to be going right down and give it a nice stroke there on those peasant bowmen. Unfortunately, the skull does kind of drift in the wrong direction and goes the other way, kind of missing that second train of value. Halberds are holding pretty well in the front. They're still our foot squires, and unfortunately, if the halberds are busy fighting infantry, they're not going to be as effective against cycle charges here. And the questing knights, though they are taking casualties on impacts, are still getting some really good work in. Chaos Warriors getting the standard eye from Archaon. The Lord of the End Times trying his best to rally his troops here, although I don't see Archaon being a terribly inspirational leader. Probably more ruling through fear and that kind of thing. On the flank, Hadri sending in some questing knights. My poor Marauder horsemen are going to be getting caught a little bit. I did lapse on those guys because I was really trying to focus down these questing knights, which it did work. The throwing axes were able to get some great value, but now my Hell Cannon might be in a position to potentially get compromised. These Chaos Warrior halberds really are going to have to hold incredibly hard. Also, forgot to mention my Chaos Warhounds with Poison were, of course, in the classical Turin manner, forgotten on the edge of the map here. And talk about Value City, man. If I were to have those guys here, they potentially could have killed many of these peasant archers now, but it's kind of like a dual-pronged sword, right? Ooh, look at that fat burning head right there, just wrecking 2 peasant bowmen. That's really what's keeping me in the game, to be honest. But if those poison warhounds had been able to come back here, Hadri's would have played differently, right? He would have kept some knights back there. It's, you know, the tactical reserves could come into play here in the late game. We will certainly see. Now, Archaon Never Chosen, a little bit beat up. Lewin, of course, has healing. Chaos does not have any healing. Yeah, I do think that in Game 3, or at least when Chaos gets its updates, I do think that Chaos will get some form of healing. Like, I think Nurgle, typically in 40k and Fantasy, usually has some healing mechanics, so I do think that'll be something we'll see in Chaos eventually, which I think will be very welcome. Chaos Warriors with Halberds making a valiant last stand here against the hordes of unwashed and filthy peasants. These dudes definitely not happy about having to fight next to the Soul of Damnation. Archaon, as well as the Exalted Hero, going to be regrouping here. Lewin going after an isolated Exalted Hero. Definitely a good play here. He was kind of out in the open, and Lewin could have potentially killed him, but the Exalted Hero was able to avoid those attacks. Lewin coming in now. One Exalted Hero going to be charging in. Archaon going in as well. Archaon probably one of the scarier duelists in the game when he does have the Slayer of Kings active, although I believe it was on cooldown here. And now the second Manticore has been summoned, and I think my Hounds are on the way. No, not yet. They do eventually come in and make a pretty big difference here, but the Marauder Horsemen in the backfield definitely doing some great work. Bretonnia has a couple of questing knights back here. Nothing to really, write home about, but the Marauder Horsemen should be able to kite those guys, pick them apart with throwing axes, and maybe continue their rampage onto the archers, which is really valuable, right? Because without the archers peppering in, I can kind of force Bretonnia to fight on my terms, which is like Chaos Halberds and all that sort of scary stuff. Bounce power, though, is a little bit in the favor of Bretonnia. However, there is a Manticore summoned in the battlefield, so a little bit of a false inflation. That freaking Hell Cannon, though, man, is still going strong and just pounding into these foot squires. And what's great is, if this was a regular Hell Cannon, I would have 2 shots left, more or less. I think it's 20 to 40. I think it has double the ammunition. So it just goes to show, right? This thing still has so much value to give on the battlefield. Already up to 181 whopping kills. But in this case, it can keep going. It's the Energizer Bunny. Yes, that's the proper analogy here. Now, Archaon in a little bit of a cockfight here. You can see the Slayer of Kings should be getting activated here in a second, putting Archaon up to insane combat stat mode. 78 melee attack, 844, charge bonus of 97, and he is whooping on Lewin. Lewin was at like full health there, and Archaon continuing to do some fat damage. Hopefully Archie's going to be able to get one more attack on him before he escapes, but it looks like Lewin is going to be wisely retreating from the Slayer of Kings. Yeah, look at that huge damage, man. So the Poison Hounds have come in. There are some Questing Knights chasing them down. But, the fact that the Questing Knights are chasing down the Poison Hounds now means that the Marauder Horsemen can come in, and they should be able to potentially hunt down these Peasant Bowmen and do some really good work, because, even this amount of Peasant Bowmen getting back into this fight here is going to be, everything. It'll change the whole dynamic of this battle here. Really nice Flock of Doom going down from Bretonnia, as well as the Sword of Corone. Halberds are holding. Chaos Warrior Halberds are not immune to Psychology, though, and I do not have the Crown of Domination on Archaon, so I have to be very careful here. Bretonnia is a little bit ahead on the bounce of power, but, if Archaon is able to potentially finish off King Lewin, I do think at the end of the day, that is going to be the deciding factor, right? Can Archie kill Lewin? If so, I think that I will be able to pull this game out. Now, the Warhounds able to juke some of these questing knights here, going to be pulling back and up through the middle. The Peasant Bowmen in the backfield are being attacked by the Marauder Horsemen, certainly taking some damage, but I'm kind of running out of buffering. Archaon and the Exalted Heroes are fighting pretty hard, but the Chaos Warriors are getting very low, just being drowned in bodies and bodies of these filthy peasants, and things are getting a little bit crazy for sure. Damsel of Beasts picking a bit of a rough fight here. Not too much value to be gained by killing the damsel at this point, though, considering the summon is off the battlefield. So Archaon's just going absolutely apeshit here, trying to get on top of King Lewin. He drifts around, but he rides past him. Oh, it's so annoying. The way that horses like circle, and now you can see for the first time of the game, we jump ahead in the balance of power, but when Lewin rallies, we fall back. It's just such a damn close game. But now the Toll of Damnation is going to be dying, which is really, really painful here, and Archaon is going to be relatively surrounded. Though we do have some Hounds here. Hounds able to kill these Peasant Bowmen to the last. Marauder Horsemen doing the same thing, chasing down Foot Squires and Peasant Bowmen here. Definitely keeping a lot of the pressure off Archaon. But Archaon, the only allies he has left are the Chaos Dwarves here. And honestly, this battle right here is going to be the deciding factor. If Archaon can turn around and kill Lewin, I probably win. If not, I think that the Bretonnians might be able to tickle the pickle here. So Lewin swings, but he does not take enough damage to actually kill him. And Archaon is now going to be getting swarmed by Foot Squires. So I know that I have some Poison Hounds here. So I'm like, okay, if Archaon's going to be making a fight, let's go ahead and fight with the Poison Hounds, who don't have great AP, but you can still see on impact against the Questing Knights, who are buffed up by the Standard Ground. The Poison Hounds are able to get some decent damage. Hopefully we can continue to grind them down. Here comes Lewin going for the Three-Eyed King once again. Archaon is pushed back. Slayer of Kings is active here. Are we going to be able to get him? And it looks like Archaon missed his attack. That might have been enough to kill him, considering Slayer of Kings put him up to a whopping 905. But I don't think it's going to be enough, as it looks like the Hordes of Bretonnia, the unwashed mass, is going to be taking down the Lord of the End Times. Very well played. That was a super close back and forth game. The tactical reserves definitely hurt, leaving those Hounds in the trees for a long time. There was a couple openings where I think they could have done some serious work, but it's funny because I hid them over there to like kind of keep them out of sight, out of mind of my opponent, but it ended up backfiring on me. But really, I don't know. I don't know if it would have been enough. Maybe. I think maybe if the Hounds could have like pinned in Lewin when he tried to escape, or killed the Peasant Archers earlier, because he didn't have any cheap cav, right? So I think had the Hounds been able to at least occupy a Questing Knight, that would have taken a lot of pressure off my front line too. But, you know, at the end of the day, the fact that this build performed that well, I'm happy with this build. I think it's pretty good. I don't know what I would change. Maybe the Exalted Heroes. I'm not a huge fan of them, but again, he didn't bring what they were designed to deal with, which is, you know, Fey Enchantress, Double Paladin, which is a little bit more meta than Lewin. But yeah, Archaon went ham that game. 3,600 gold back, just Value City with the Burning Heads and taking down Lewin. I loved it, man. And aside from that, Halberds did pretty good. 1,200 here, 700 here. These ones not so good. These ones did okay. So, you know, across the board, they did fine. Soul of Damnation, which you guys are really here to see. 16,000 damage compared to 16,000. So he did about as much damage as Archaon. But again, the targets he was hitting weren't as valuable. But yeah, Soul of Damnation, a staple in that matchup. I think it's really, really good. And yeah, Hadri's build was awesome. I love the inclusion of Foot Squires, though they kind of got pounded. His Peasant Bowmen really are the... really did some huge damage. You know, it was kind of spread across all of them, but yeah. And Lewin, 1,900 here, 1,200, 600. Yeah, Questing Knights didn't do bad. It was a great game. Super close. Could have gone either way for sure. So well played, Hadris. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one, and we will see you guys on the other side. Take care.